The ice storm arrived without warning. All the weather sensors on planet Solora 9 showed clear skies only an hour before, but now a thick white wall covered the horizon. The wind pushed snow in fast circles, and the whole research valley looked like it had been swallowed by a frozen cloud. Mara Keen stood at the window of the Humyn research cabin, watching the storm turn stronger. She had seen storms on many planets, but Solora 9 storms were always special. They came quickly, they hit hard, and they left everything looking like a different world. Mara, however, was not worried. She had lived on outposts most of her adult life. Harsh weather was normal. What she cared about was what the storm might do to the fragile equipment outside. When the first wave of snow slowed down, Mara grabbed her thermal suit and stepped out into the cold. The air was sharp and thin. Snowflakes touched her visor and melted instantly into tiny dots of water. Mara activated her scanner and walked toward the far side of the outpost where the sensor towers were placed. She loved these quiet moments, even in a storm. The whole world seemed calm and still, like the planet was holding its breath. Most of the alien researchers stayed inside during storms, but Mara was not the type to wait and worry. She preferred to see everything with her own eyes. The first two towers were fine. The third one had a layer of ice so thick she had to scrape it off with her gloves. As she worked, her scanner beeped softly. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was reacting to the tower itself, but the beeping grew sharper and more persistent. Mara frowned. "Strange," she whispered to herself. She tapped the scanner screen. It showed a faint life sign reading coming from the north side of the valley, near a small ridge. She turned toward the direction and saw nothing but endless white snow. Maybe it was an animal. Solora 9 had a few small creatures, but the reading was too strong for a tiny animal and too weak for an adult alien. The signal also flickered, almost like whoever or whatever it was could not keep steady. Weak. Cold. Fading. Mara's breath fogged the glass of her helmet. Something needed help. She took a few careful steps in the direction of the signal. The snow was deep and the wind pushed against her. Every few seconds she had to readjust her footing. But she continued, watching the scanner the whole time. As she moved farther away from the outpost buildings, something dark finally appeared in the white snow ahead. At first it was only a shape, small, rounded, and half-buried. Mara walked faster. The scanner beeped louder. When she reached the shape, she realized it was an alien transport pod, one of the Varzelli pods. They were often used as quick shuttles to travel short distances around the valley. But this one looked damaged. The side hatch was frozen halfway open, and icicles had formed around the edges. Mara looked around. There were no footsteps, no other signs of life, no trails that showed anyone had left the pod. "Hello?" she called out, knowing nobody could hear through the storm, but speaking anyway. The scanner beeped again. The life signs were coming from inside the pod. Mara knelt down beside the half-open hatch. The inside was dim, nearly dark, with only a faint glow from a failing power cell. She leaned closer and squinted, trying to see more clearly. That was when she heard it. A tiny sound, a soft, weak chirp, almost like a newborn animal calling for warmth. Mara's heart tightened. She pushed the frozen hatch further open and finally saw them, two tiny creatures curled together on a blanket that was stiff with ice. They were green, small, and shaped almost like dragons from old Earth legends. Their wings were folded close to their sides, and their tails were wrapped around each other. Their bodies were trembling. The creatures were alive, but barely. "Oh no," Mara whispered, shocked. They looked so young. Their eyes were closed tight. Their breathing was thin and fast. They were clearly freezing. Where were the Varzelli caretakers? Why would they leave infants behind? Mara did not know the answer, but she did not waste time. She reached into the pod carefully, her gloved hands moving slowly so she would not frighten the tiny beings, even though they were too weak to react. She lifted the first one. Its body felt cold through her thick gloves, and its tremble was so light she almost did not feel it. She gently placed it inside the warm pouch built into the front of her thermal suit. Then she lifted the second one and did the same. The scanner beeped again, this time loudly. The life signs became a little stronger in the warmth of her suit. "Hang on," Mara said softly. "I've got you." She closed the broken hatch as best as she could, though the pod itself was clearly beyond saving. Then she turned back toward the outpost. The storm suddenly felt worse, as if the wind knew she was carrying something precious. Mara walked carefully but quickly. She had to use her full strength to push through the deeper snow. Her breath grew heavy. Frost formed around the edges of her visor. Every few seconds, she looked down to check on the little dragons. She could not see them through the suit pouch, but she could feel their faint movement against her. The weight did not bother her. The fear did. She did not know how long they had been out there. She did not know how long they could survive, but she knew they needed warmth immediately. When she finally reached the outpost door, she pressed the entry switch with her elbow. Warm yellow lights filled the entrance hall as the airlock closed. The inner door opened, and the sudden rush of warm air hit her like a wave. Inside, two human scientists were waiting, Arlo Denning and Priya Solon. They had seen Mara on the external cameras and came to help. "You were out there too long," Priya said, worry in her voice. "The storm is getting worse." "I found something," Mara said quickly. "Two infants, dragon-like, Varselli species." Priya's eyes widened. Arlo stepped closer. "You found infants? Outside?" Arlo asked. "Alone?" Mara nodded and opened the thermal pouch. The two small dragons were still curled together, shivering but moving a little more than before. Their tiny claws twitched against the fabric. Their breathing was a bit steadier. Priya gasped very softly, as if she was afraid to make too much noise around the fragile beings. "Oh, they're beautiful," she whispered. "Poor little things." Arlo hurried to prepare a warming table. Special heating pads were placed in layers. A soft light glowed from above the table, simulating gentle sunlight. Mara lifted the babies from her pouch and placed them onto the warm surface. Almost immediately, the dragons curled closer to the heat. Their wings stretched just a little, like tiny leaves unfolding. Their small heads rested against the padding. One of them made a soft, sleepy chirp that filled the room with a strange mix of sadness and hope. Priya adjusted the temperature while Arlo checked the scanner. "Their body heat is rising," Arlo said. "Slowly, but it's rising. They're very young, maybe only a few weeks old." Mara took off her helmet. Her face was warm now, but her expression stayed serious. "Why were they left alone outside?" she asked quietly. "Why would anyone leave babies behind during a storm?" Priya hesitated. "The Varselli have complicated views on newborns," she said. "Sometimes they—" She stopped, realizing the babies could hear her voice. She softened her tone. "Sometimes they think only the strongest should survive without help." Mara stared at the tiny dragons. Their bodies were finally relaxing. Their breathing was deeper now, slow and steady. "They weren't weak," Mara said firmly. "They were abandoned." Arlo nodded in agreement. "We're humans. We don't just leave infants behind, not in a storm." Mara stepped closer to the table. The dragons were so small they could both fit in her two hands. Their scales shimmered faintly under the warming light, a soft emerald green. One of them lifted its head slightly. Its eyes were still closed, but it leaned toward Mara's voice as if it recognized her warmth. Priya smiled. "They like you." Mara felt a soft wave of emotion she did not expect. "They just want someone to care for them," she said. Arlo placed a soft blanket over the babies. Then they came to the right place. The storm raged outside, strong enough to shake the walls, but inside the human cabin, the warmth spread gently through the air. The two tiny dragons slept peacefully for the first time since the storm began, and Marrakeen stood beside them, knowing this was only the beginning. For the next several hours, the Humyn outpost stayed busy. Nobody rested, nobody complained. Everyone focused on only one thing: the two tiny green dragons sleeping under soft, warming lights. Marrakeen stayed close to their table the entire time. She checked their breathing, adjusted the blankets, and watched the temperature readings carefully. Even when she sat, her eyes stayed on them, as if she feared they might disappear if she looked away. Arlo Denning prepared nutrient mixtures, carefully adjusting formulas usually used for small alien mammals. Priya Solin set up a soft sound environment so the babies wouldn't be stressed by sudden noises. Even engineer Jonas Hale, normally uninterested in anything except machines, hovered nearby, building a portable heat stabilizer, just in case. The babies slowly gained strength. Their breathing evened out. Their scales brightened from a dull green to a soft, warm glow, and occasionally one would stretch a tiny wing or wiggle its small tail, almost like testing its muscles again. By evening, the storm outside grew stronger. Winds howled against the outpost walls. But inside, the atmosphere felt warm and gentle. Mara watched the dragons sleep, her voice soft. "They look better than this morning." Priya nodded. "Much better. I think they'll survive." Arlo, who had been checking readings on a datapad, added, "They still need a lot of care, but they've already improved faster than I expected." Jonas leaned on the table, studying the dragons with curious eyes. "They're kind of adorable," he admitted. "Never thought I'd say that about a reptile." Mara smiled a little. Jonas rarely showed emotion. If he liked them, it meant something. Later that night, once the babies were stable, Mara finally removed her thermal suit. She stretched her tired muscles and poured herself a cup of warm tea. She sat down in the corner of the room, watching the sleeping dragons. Priya joined her. "You've been standing for hours. You should rest." "I will," Mara said, though she didn't move. Priya followed Mara's gaze. "You feel responsible for them." Mara nodded slowly. "I found them. Alone. Freezing. If I had waited even 10 minutes more, they wouldn't be here." Priya touched her shoulder gently. "You saved them. That's something wonderful." Mara looked down at her tea. "I don't want to think about what would have happened if I didn't take that path today." Priya understood. Mara always carried responsibility deeply. It was one of the reasons she was respected. She didn't just do her job. She gave her heart to it. The next morning, the storm continued, but inside the outpost, the mood brightened. The dragons woke up for the first time since being rescued. Their eyes were large, shining like polished jade stones. They blinked slowly, taking in the warm room, the lights, and the gentle humans around them. When Mara leaned over them, the dragons reacted immediately. They each let out a soft, high-pitched chirp and stretched toward her hands. One even tried to climb out of the warming table, wobbling and clumsy. "They know your voice," Priya said, smiling brightly. Mara lifted one of the babies carefully. Its tiny claws gripped her glove. Its scales felt warmer, a sign its body was returning to normal. She held it close to her chest. "You're safe now," she said softly. "No more freezing for you." The baby chirped again, nuzzling her hand. Jonas, standing nearby, chuckled. "Looks like you're their mother now." Mara gave him a look, but her cheeks warmed. She wasn't used to such comments, yet she couldn't deny she had grown attached quickly. The second dragon looked up at Arlo, chirping loudly, demanding attention. Arlo picked it up gently, laughing. "They're awake and loud. That's a good sign." Priya checked their temperatures again. "Their body heat is perfect. Their appetite should show up soon." Almost on cue, one baby opened its mouth wide and squeaked at Mara. "You're hungry?" Mara said. All right, let's get you fed. Feeding them became the next challenge. The nutrient mixture Arlo created was warm and thick, poured into small, drop-shaped feeding tools. The babies drank eagerly, their tiny tongues flicking softly. They held the feeding tools with both claws, as if afraid someone might take them away. They're eating so fast, Jonas said. Wow, Priya laughed. They're catching up. They probably haven't eaten in days. The dragons ate until their bellies became round like tiny glowing stones. Then they curled up together and fell asleep again, their tails wrapped around each other. Bonded twins, Priya said. They rely on each other a lot. And on you, Arlo added, glancing at Mara. Mara stroked the top of one dragon's head with a gentle finger. It didn't wake, but it let out a tiny rumble, almost like a small purr. Hours passed, and the human outpost returned to its usual routines, though everyone walked quieter than normal so the babies wouldn't be disturbed. Mara completed a full report on the rescue, sending it to the Human Command Center. But the biggest question remained. Why did the Varselli leave the infants behind? The alien species had been working with humans on joint research missions for years. The Varselli were calm, logical, and strict, but this, leaving vulnerable offspring in a storm, felt cold even for them. Priya approached Mara later in the day. We should tell the Varselli Council. They will want to know. Mara hesitated. Will they help or take them away? That depends, Priya said quietly. Sometimes the Varselli don't raise their own young. They have different ideas about survival. Mara frowned deeply. She had heard rumors, but seeing the tiny dragons cling to life made her feel protective. Too protective. I don't want them taken somewhere cold or empty, she said. They need warmth and care. And they'll get it, Priya assured her. At least from us. Later in the afternoon, the babies woke up for the second time. They were stronger now, standing on their shaky little legs, trying to explore their small table. One of them tried to fly, but only managed a tiny hop. Arlo laughed. Slow down there, you're not ready to fly. The dragon squeaked back, clearly disagreeing. Jonas built a small padded pen so the dragons could move safely without falling. He even added soft glowing balls for them to play with. When he finished, he looked embarrassed. It's not cute. It's just practical, he said quickly. Priya giggled. Of course, Jonas. Very practical. The babies loved the pen immediately. They chased the glowing balls, tripped over their own tails, tumbled over each other, and chirped constantly. The room filled with their small, happy sounds. Mara watched them with warm eyes. Seeing them full of energy made her chest feel lighter. She didn't know how long they would stay with the humans, but she wanted this happiness to last. In the evening, something unexpected happened. A communication alert beeped from the main console. Arlo hurried to check the message. When he read it, his eyebrows rose. It's from the Varselli Transport Center, he said. They received our report. They're sending a delegation tomorrow morning. Mara froze. Priya looked worried. Jonas muttered something under his breath. So they know we have the infants, Priya said slowly. Yes, Arlo confirmed. And they're coming to see them. Silence filled the room for a moment. Mara looked at the two little dragons curled up asleep in their pen. They looked peaceful, safe, completely unaware that a group of aliens might soon decide their future. What do the Varselli want? Jonas asked. Arlo shrugged. They didn't say. Priya swallowed nervously. Their customs about young ones are strict. If the twins were left behind because they were considered weak. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Mara stepped closer to the pen and knelt beside it. She placed her hand near the twins. One of them stirred and rested its tiny head on her fingers. No matter what happens, Mara said softly, we'll stand up for them. The others nodded. Humans might be small compared to many alien species. Their technology might not always be the most advanced. Their customs might seem emotional. But when something needed protection, especially helpless young creatures, humans always stepped forward, and Mara was ready. The storm outside finally began to calm, but inside the outpost, a different kind of storm was preparing to arrive. Tomorrow, the Varselli would come, and humanity would have to prove once again why they were different, why they cared, why they never abandoned the vulnerable, and why, sometimes, the universe needed a human heart to set things right. Morning arrived slowly on Salora 9. The sky turned from dark gray to a faint silver as the last pieces of the ice storm faded. Snow still covered everything, and the air outside remained cold enough to bite the skin, but at least the winds had stopped crying around the outpost walls. Inside the human cabin, the atmosphere was completely different. Warm lights glowed gently, heating systems hummed softly, and the two baby dragons chirped happily inside their padded playpen. They had woken early and were busily exploring their toys, batting at glowing balls with their soft claws. Mara Keen watched them with both joy and worry. Today was the day the Varselli delegation would arrive. She tightened her gloves and took a deep breath. Priya and Arlo stood beside her, both looking nervous. Jonas sat at the console, checking incoming signals. At exactly 7 in the morning, the scanner beeped. "They're here," Jonas said. "A Varselli shuttle is landing now." Mara nodded, though her stomach turned. She did not want anyone taking the babies away. Not after everything the humans had done to save them. Not after seeing how happy and safe they were now. Priya whispered, "No matter what they say, we speak for the babies." "Always," Arlo added. The outpost doors slid open as the Varselli shuttle touched down on the snow. The shuttle was sleek, white, and shaped almost like a large seed pod. A ray of warm steam drifted from the engines as the hatch opened. 3 Varselli stepped out. They were tall, much taller than humans, and slim, with smooth light blue skin and long fingers. Their eyes were large and silver, reflecting everything like mirrors. They always moved calmly, almost gracefully, as if they never felt rushed. The leader, identified by a silver armband, approached first. "I am Envoy Sellar," he said in a calm, emotionless tone. "We received your report concerning 2 young specimens." Mara stepped forward. "They're inside, safe and healthy." Sellar gave a slow nod. "We will examine them." The word sounded simple, but Mara felt uncomfortable. Examine, like they were objects. She led them inside. The Varselli entered the main room and stopped immediately when they saw the 2 green baby dragons. The babies looked up at the new visitors, confused, but not afraid. One chirped softly and tilted its head. Sellar studied them for a long moment without any visible reaction. Behind him, the second Varselli, a female named Kira Sol, folded her long fingers together. Her eyes widened slightly in surprise. The third, a quiet observer named Pren, stared at the babies with a thoughtful expression. Arlo stepped forward. "They were freezing when we found them. Their pod was abandoned in the storm." Sellar responded without turning. "The storm changed its pattern. It moved faster than expected. A group of our caretakers departed the valley and did not return for the young." Priya frowned. "They left them?" Sellar blinked once, slow and calm. "When young ones appear weak, they are not brought back." Mara's breath caught. "Weak? They were just cold." "That is still weakness," Sellar replied. There was no anger in his voice, but his words felt sharp, like he was explaining a simple fact, not a heartbreaking truth. The babies, sensing the tension, moved close together. One crawled toward Mara's boot and rested its head gently against it. Priya knelt beside the pen. "They're not weak. They're recovering fast." Sellar folded his long hands behind his back. Recovery does not change our evaluation. If they were strong, they would have survived the storm. Mara couldn't hold back anymore. They did survive, because we helped them. Selar finally turned his silver eyes toward her. That is your way. Humans interfere. You nurture even when it is inefficient. To him, nurturing sounded like a flaw. Priya inhaled slowly, trying to stay calm. We don't see it as interference. We see it as care. Kirasol, the quiet female delegate, stepped closer to the pen. She crouched slightly, bringing her face near the twins. The babies sniffed at her gently, curious. Her silver eyes softened subtly, the smallest shift, barely visible, but Mara noticed. These young ones are bonded, Kirasol said. Twins are uncommon. Their link is strong. Yes, Priya said softly. They hold each other when they sleep. They cry if separated. Arlo added, They respond to sound and warmth. They are healthy now. They deserve a chance. Silence returned. Seller looked at the babies again. We must determine their future. Mara stepped between him and the pen. You're not taking them away unless we know they'll be safe. Seller blinked. You cannot make demands of us. I'm not making demands, Mara replied firmly. I'm protecting them. The room grew tense. Even the babies sensed it. They crawled behind Mara's boots like little shadows. Kirasol touched Sailor's arm lightly. Let us discuss this with open thought. We must understand what the humans have done. Sailor considered this, then nodded. Very well. Explain. Arlo pointed to the warming table, the heating pads, and the nutrient mixer. We used every tool we had to stabilize them. Priya continued. We created a soft environment so they wouldn't be frightened. Temperature, sound, and light all helped them relax. Jonas added, I built protective walls around their pen so they can walk without falling. Mara knelt beside the dragons, and we gave them comfort, warmth, voices. They respond to gentle care, not abandonment. Pren, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. His voice was soft but thoughtful. They are young. Their minds are open. Influence matters. Seller looked at him. Explain. Pren said, These twins have already formed a bond with the humans, and the humans, by their actions, have formed a bond with them. Mara nodded. They trust us. They follow our voices. They sleep only when we're near. Kirasol looked at the babies again. Their color has improved. Their breathing is steady. They are thriving. Seller stared at her, confused. Thriving? They were marked as weak. Perhaps they were not weak, she replied softly. Perhaps they were only cold. Sailor's expression changed, just slightly. A flicker of doubt. The babies chose that moment to act. The braver one chirped loudly, flapped its little wings, and stumbled toward Seller. It bumped its head gently against his boot and made a soft rumble sound, as if greeting him. Seller stiffened in surprise. It approaches me. The second baby, not wanting to be left out, toddled forward and pressed its small body against his other boot. The delegation stared. They seek connection, Priya said softly, not rejection. For the first time, Sailor lowered himself to one knee, bringing his face closer to the twins. They sniffed his hands and licked his fingers with warm little tongues. Kirasol tilted her head. They recognize kindness. Selar whispered, I did not show kindness. Perhaps they feel possibility, Pren said. Mara watched the moment carefully. It was the first sign that the Varzelli might be seeing the dragons differently. After several minutes of quiet observation, Selar stood. We must speak privately, he said, but we have learned something today. What did you learn? Mara asked gently. Sailor looked at her with calm, reflective eyes. That weakness is not always real. Sometimes it is only circumstance. With that, the Varzelli stepped aside to discuss. The humans waited anxiously. The babies, now tired, crawled back to Mara and curled beside her feet. She stroked their soft scales, heart pounding. She whispered to them, "Whatever happens, we're with you." Priya and Arlo stood close. Jonas crossed his arms. "If they say the babies can't stay here." "I'm ready to argue." Mara nodded. "We all are." After several long minutes, the Varzelli returned. Seller spoke with a steady voice. "We have decided. These young ones will remain under human care for now. Their progress must continue. We want to observe this nurturing method." Relief washed over the room. Priya smiled brightly. "Thank you." Arlo exhaled deeply. "You made the right choice." Seller added, "However, we will also visit regularly to learn from you. These twins represent something unusual, something we do not yet understand." Kirasol bent down and touched one baby's head gently. The baby chirped in reply. "They trust you," she said to Mara. "We will not break that trust." Mara felt her eyes warm. "We'll take good care of them. You have my word." Seller bowed slightly. "Then we entrust them to humanity. For now." After the Varzelli left, the babies crawled into Mara's lap and fell asleep instantly. Priya laughed softly. They knew it was safe. Arlo leaned against the table. "We did it." Jonas grinned. "Well, part of it." Mara stroked the twins' soft heads. "This is only the beginning. They're part of our family now." Outside, sunlight touched the snow for the first time in days. Inside, two baby dragons slept peacefully, warm, safe, and protected. And humanity had just taken its next step toward something extraordinary. For the next 2 days, the outpost felt brighter than ever. The humans continued caring for the baby dragons, and the twins became stronger and more curious with each hour. Their tiny wings stretched wider, their scales glowed warmer, their legs grew steadier as they jumped and stumbled around their playpen. Mara Keen spent most of her time with them. Whenever she spoke, the babies turned toward her voice. Whenever she walked past, they tried to follow her, bumping into each other but chirping happily. They had decided, in their tiny dragon minds, that Mara was safety itself. The Varzelli delegation also visited, as they had promised. Envoy Selar, Kirasol, and Pren watched quietly as the humans cared for the twins. They asked questions, observed carefully, and even took notes. "It is unusual," Seller said one morning, "how they respond to warmth and voice tones." Priya nodded. "They understand kindness, and they grow faster when they feel safe." Kirasol watched one of the babies try to chase a glowing ball. "It seems comfort encourages development." Salar tilted his head. "We do not use comfort in our youngling practices." Jonas snorted softly. "Maybe that's something worth changing." Salar didn't respond, but he didn't disagree either. Everything felt calm. But calm never lasted long on Salora 9. That evening, the weather sensors began blinking rapidly. Jonas checked the monitors and frowned deeply. "Mara, the storm predictions just changed." Mara walked over. "Another storm?" Jonas nodded. "Yes, a big one, much bigger than the last. It's coming fast." Priya looked up from the playpen. "How fast?" Jonas tapped the screen. "We have maybe 2 hours before it hits." Arlo sighed. "This planet really doesn't let us relax." Mara turned her head toward the babies. The twins were curled together, fast asleep. Their breathing was soft and steady. She felt a knot form in her chest. A strong storm could be dangerous for them, not because they would be outside, but because the outpost's power systems were old and fragile. If the temperature controls failed, even for a short time, the dragons could suffer. "We need to prepare," Mara said. "Everything must be checked." The humans sprang into action. The first priority was protecting the baby's environment. Arlo replaced old heating pads with new ones. Priya added extra blankets to the pen. Jonas ran a complete check on the power grid. The Varzelli delegation, still in the outpost, paused their observation as the humans rushed around. Seller approached Mara. "Your activity level has increased." "It's preparation," Mara said quickly. "The storm might damage the power grid. The twins need stable heat." Kirasol stepped closer to the babies. "Their bodies have improved, but they still depend on warmth." "Exactly," Mara replied. "We can't risk them getting cold again." Pren moved to the wall panels. "Your grid is outdated. The storm will stress it." Mara nodded. "We know." Seller's eyes softened slightly. "We will help." Mara blinked. "You will?" "Yes," Seller replied calmly. "We will not allow these young ones to suffer again." For the first time, the Varzelli and humans worked side by side. As the storm approached, the wind outside began to roar. Snow swirled so thick that the view from the window looked like white fog. The walls of the outpost trembled slightly under the pressure. Inside, Mara and the others kept working. Jonas crawled under the main control console. "The backup battery is unstable. I need time to fix it." "Take whatever you need," Mara said. Arlo added emergency heating lamps around the baby's pen. Priya tested the warmth levels repeatedly, watching the tiny dragons carefully. The Varzelli delegates helped in their own logical way. Pren scanned the power lines and pointed out weak spots. Kirasol stabilized several panels with tools Mara had never seen before. Even Silar monitored the temperature sensors with quiet intensity. He said, "The storm will peak in 40 minutes. Mara nodded. "We'll be ready." At least she hoped so. When the storm hit, it arrived like a silent explosion. The outpost lights flickered, then steadied. Wind slammed against the walls. Snow piled against the windows so quickly that the outside world vanished completely. "Hold steady," Jonas muttered. For a while, everything worked fine. The heaters hummed. The lights glowed. The babies stayed warm and content in their pen, chirping softly. Then it happened. A loud pop echoed through the outpost. The lights dimmed. The heaters flickered. And Jonas shouted, "The main power line just froze!" Mara rushed to the console. "How long until it fails completely?" Jonas checked quickly. "Minutes, maybe 5. Priya gasped. "The babies—" "We won't let anything happen to them," Mara said firmly. She turned to the Varzelli. "We need every pair of hands we have," Seller nodded. "Command us." The next few minutes became a blur of frantic, coordinated action. Jonas and Pren worked to bypass the frozen line. Sparks popped from the panel. Ice crackled inside the wires. Kirasol and Arlo stabilized the heating lamps and connected them to a portable generator. Priya held both babies close to her chest, wrapped in blankets. Their tiny bodies trembled from the sudden drop in temperature. Mara grabbed the emergency thermal packs and activated them. The packs warmed instantly. She placed them around the babies, creating a small cocoon of heat. The outpost shook as wind smashed against it again. Jonas shouted, "I'm losing the grid!" Mara called back, "Keep trying!" Pren added, "We need more heat for the young ones. They cannot maintain temperature alone." Mara nodded. She knelt beside Priya and placed her hands over the blankets. "Stay with me. Stay warm." The babies whimpered softly, curling closer to her touch. For 10 long minutes, everyone fought against the failing power system. The storm howled like a giant outside. The grid sparked. Ice formed on some pipes. The heaters flickered again and again, but nobody stopped. Sailor helped Jonas stabilize the wires. Kirasol used her tools to melt ice buildup. Priya whispered gentle comfort to the babies. Arlo kept adjusting the portable generator. Jonas, sweating despite the cold, refused to give up. And Mara stayed with the babies the whole time, giving them warmth through her hands and voice. "You're safe," she whispered softly. "We're right here, all of us." The dragons slowly relaxed. Their trembling weakened, their tiny bodies warmed again, but the storm was still at full strength. And then, the light blinked back to full power. Jonas shouted, "We did it!" Arlo cheered, "The grid is stable!" Priya hugged the babies close. "They're warm again." Even Sailor allowed himself a slow exhale. "That was efficient teamwork," Jonas laughed. "You can call it whatever you want. We saved them." Mara finally sat back, exhausted but relieved. The babies climbed into her lap, chirping softly. Their scales glowed warmly again, proof they were safe. "We did it," Priya whispered. "All of us. Humans and Varzelli together." Mara nodded. "This is what cooperation looks like." Seller stepped closer to the twins. "You were correct, Mara Keen. They are not weak. They simply needed support." Mara smiled. "Everyone needs support sometimes." The Varzelli leader looked at the babies with new understanding. "It appears your human nurturing is beneficial, more than we expected." Kirasol added softly, "Perhaps more than we ever used." The twins chirped at her in agreement. The storm outside continued for hours, but inside the outpost, the temperature stayed steady. The heaters hummed. The lights glowed. The babies slept peacefully in Mara's arms. When the storm finally weakened, the humans and Varzelli sat together at the same table, tired but proud. "You risked yourselves for them," Seller said. "That is not typical human behavior in our records." Mara smiled gently. "Maybe your records need updating." Pren nodded slowly. "Perhaps they do." Kirasol looked at the babies, who were now dreaming quietly. "They recognize your voices. They trust your touch. They survived because of you." Arlo said, "Because of all of us." The Varzelli exchanged thoughtful glances. Seller said, "Then we will continue learning from you. These twins may change more than we expected." Mara stroked one dragon's head. "They already have." As night finally calmed, a quiet peace spread through the outpost. The air felt warmer, not just because of the restored power, but because of something else, too: trust, understanding, shared purpose. For the first time, humans and Varzelli truly worked as one. And the two tiny dragons, safe, warm, and loved, had become the bridge between two worlds. The morning after the storm was calm. For the first time in days, sunlight broke through the clouds of Salora 9, sparkling over the frozen valley and reflecting from the outpost walls. The air was crisp and clear, and the world seemed at peace. Inside the human cabin, life felt warmer than ever. The two baby dragons chirped softly as they explored their padded playpen. Their tiny wings flapped awkwardly, but confidently now. They climbed over the glowing balls, tumbled over each other, and occasionally looked up at Mara, as if checking that she was nearby. Mara Keen smiled. "You two are getting stronger every day," she whispered. One of the twins let out a happy squeak and crawled into her lap, while the other nudged Priya's shoulder. Priya laughed quietly. "They trust us completely now." Arlo Denning checked the scanners and nodded. "Everything looks good. Vital signs are strong. Growth is steady. They're thriving." Jonas Hale, leaning on the wall with a rare smile, added, "I never thought I'd say this, but they're adorable and smart." Mara looked down at the twins, her heart swelling. They had survived a storm that should have killed them. They had survived neglect, cold, and uncertainty. And they had thrived because humans had refused to give up. The Varzelli delegation was scheduled to visit again that morning, but this time, the mood was different. When Envoy Seller, Kirasol, and Pren arrived, they walked through the cabin quietly, observing rather than inspecting. The twins chirped at their presence, but they did not retreat or tremble. Seller's silver eyes, usually cold and unreadable, softened slightly. "They are remarkably resilient," he said. And they respond well to your care, Mara Keen. Mara nodded. They have a chance now because we refuse to leave them behind. Kirasol crouched to the level of the pen. One of the twins crawled toward her and nudged her long finger with its tiny nose. She paused, watching it carefully, before letting a soft hum escape her lips. The twin chirped back. They trust you, she said almost to herself. This connection, it is unusual. Pren added quietly, they are learning, and so are we. They show us something we did not understand before. Mara took a deep breath. I think they are ready for more exploration, but only if it is safe. They are small, and they need boundaries, but they also need to learn. Arlo adjusted a small padded gate around their play area. We can create a safe zone outside near the cabin. Small hills, shallow snow, soft padding for their first steps outdoors. The twins chirped excitedly as if they understood. One even attempted a small leap from Mara's lap to a nearby cushion, landing clumsily but unharmed. Jonas shook his head in amusement. They're fearless little things. Remind me not to underestimate them. Mara smiled. Fearless, yes, but they need guidance too. That's why we're here. The humans and Varselli worked together to create a small outdoor enclosure. The structure was simple: soft snow padding, protective walls, and a few glowing balls to encourage movement. The twins explored it hesitantly at first, but soon their confidence grew. They leapt small distances, stretched their wings, and chased each other, chirping joyfully. Seller observed quietly. Their development is faster than expected. It appears warmth, care, and attention greatly accelerate growth. Mara nodded. That's what we humans always do. We nurture, we protect, we teach. We don't leave anyone behind if we can help it. Kirasol knelt beside the twins. One of them nuzzled her hand again, and she allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile. Perhaps we have much to learn from you. Pren added. Your methods may be inefficient in our traditional standards, but they work. They produce results. Arlo chuckled. Sometimes efficiency isn't everything. As the day continued, Mara watched the twins play in the soft sunlight. One flew awkwardly from a small snow hill to the padded ground. The other waddled after it, wings flapping, tail trailing. Their chirps echoed joyfully through the cabin yard. Mara's mind wandered. These twins had survived what should have been impossible. They had been abandoned, freezing in a storm that would have killed any ordinary creature. And now, here they were, laughing and exploring, safe and alive. Priya walked beside her. They're thriving, and it's all because we didn't give up on them. Mara nodded slowly. Humans have a way of seeing potential where others see weakness. That's our strength, Priya smiled. And maybe the universe needs that sometimes. Later in the afternoon, the Varselli delegation requested a meeting with the humans. They wanted to discuss the twins' future care and potential research collaboration. Mara, Priya, Arlo, and Jonas joined them in the cabin's conference room. Seller spoke first. We acknowledge our initial misjudgment. These twins were not weak. They were simply vulnerable, and vulnerability is not failure. Mara leaned forward. Exactly. Vulnerability is not weakness. Every creature needs care sometimes. Kirasol added, the way humans nurtured them, it was extraordinary. We did not understand the bond they formed with you, but it is strong, and it is beneficial. Pren nodded thoughtfully. This experience demonstrates that our understanding of young life is limited. The twins' progress proves the value of consistent care and warmth. Seller paused, then said, therefore, we will continue to allow these twins to remain under human guidance. We will also study your methods to understand how to support younglings more effectively in the future. Mara felt a wave of relief wash over her. The twins were safe, their lives were secure, and humans had demonstrated the strength of compassion to an alien species that valued logic above all. The meeting ended, and Mara returned to the twins. They were perched on the soft hills in their enclosure, tails wrapped around each other. One chirped happily and crawled toward her. She scooped it up gently, holding it close. "You're safe now," she whispered. The twin chirped back as if understanding. Priya crouched beside her, holding the other twin. "They're comfortable here. They trust us completely." Mara smiled down at them. "And we will always protect them, no matter what." Outside, the sun sparkled on the snow. The wind had calmed completely. For the first time in days, the valley was peaceful. Days turned into weeks. The twins grew steadily. Their scales shimmered brighter, their wings grew stronger, and their legs became more confident. The humans continued to nurture them, and the Varzelli delegation returned occasionally to observe. Each visit from the Varzelli was different from before. Now they watched quietly, taking notes, but also participating in gentle care. Kirasol would occasionally place a hand near the twins, allowing them to nuzzle it. Pren would stabilize the heating systems and watch the babies move confidently in the outdoor playpen. Even Silar smiled subtly when one of the twins flapped its wings successfully for the first time. The twins had changed the perception of the Varzelli about vulnerability and care. The aliens began to realize that strength did not always come from independence alone, but also from nurturing, love, and attention. One morning, Mara stood on a small hill in the play enclosure, watching the twins chase each other in the sunlight. Jonas leaned beside her. "You did it," he said quietly. "They're thriving. And we didn't just save them. We taught even the Varzelli something." Mara nodded slowly. "We showed them that care is strength, that compassion matters, and that survival is not only about toughness, but also about connection." Priya joined them, holding one of the twins who was nuzzling her cheek. "They're happy," she said. "They're growing, and they've changed everything around them." Mara smiled. "Yes. They've changed everything, and they've reminded me why humans never abandon the vulnerable." The final scene of the day was quiet, but powerful. The twins perched on Mara's shoulders, wings fluttering slightly as the sun warmed them. The Varzelli delegation stood at a respectful distance, observing quietly, their expressions thoughtful. Seller finally spoke. "We have learned much from humans. Their care, their patience, their insistence on protecting the weak. It is something we did not understand. But now we do." Mara looked at the twins, then at the delegation. "It's simple," she said. "Everyone deserves a chance. Everyone deserves care. And sometimes, all it takes is someone willing to stand for them." Kirasol nodded. "We will remember this lesson. Humanity has shown us a new path." The twins chirped happily, flapping their tiny wings as if agreeing. And Mara knew that their story, their survival, their growth, their bond with humans, was only the beginning of a new future. A future where strength came not only from power, but also from love, protection, and care. On Salora 9, under the sparkling sunlight, 2 green baby dragons were safe, happy, and free, and humanity had proven once again why they were extraordinary. The outpost had survived storms, technical failures, and alien skepticism. But more importantly, it had shown that compassion could overcome fear, warmth could conquer cold, and courage could transform lives. And in the quiet valley, laughter and chirps echoed through the snow, an everlasting reminder that sometimes the smallest hearts could teach the largest lessons. The end.